Good evening and welcome to the Carolyn Holt Show. I am thrilled to have you here with me this evening. If you'd like to participate in tonight's show, you can feel free to call area code 323-293-3375. Again, that's area code 323-293-3375. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the Women's Protest March. Actually, that was participated in around the world. It wasn't just here in the United States, even though there were massive amounts of people in support of this march. There was support around the world, and as a woman, I am happy to see that, because as the adage goes, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And so I think mama was a little upset over the weekend. Now, the good news is that in being upset, I love the fact that there was a lot of restraint that governed these protest rallies, because, often people are out there to make a statement and they do things that destroy physical property and end up getting themselves arrested. And unfortunately, they get a record as a result of protesting. But this particular weekend for the Women's March, I think for the inaugural march, there perhaps were protesters that were arrested for silly things like looting and just misbehaving and destruction. But I was very proud of the females, because they not only came because they all had causes that were near and dear to their hearts, but they came because they recognized that there's unity in numbers, and that things can get done if you represent yourself professionally, which they did do. I was very proud of the obedience, but yet I liked the defiance. Many times it's expected that women will just sit quietly and they won't upset the apple cart. And that's okay, but not this weekend. And so I'm very proud of the women expressing themselves with dignity. And even though they have major issues that cause them to not be sure what's going to happen regarding representation for themselves, they know on some level that if they continue to be active and participate in the process, they can be heard and things can change for the better on their behalf. So I applaud the women all over the world because they did make their voices heard over the weekend. The interesting thing for me is that in the article that I'm going to reference tonight was in the Los Angeles Times. It's very interesting what women around the world see as a concern. And I guess the expectation is that they're expecting women in America to take the lead, and they are setting up, marches, protests, and other ways of getting attention brought to issues that are important to them. There was a comment from an article on, I think, Flipboard, from the women in Lima, Peru, Kenya, Prague, and Georgia, which used to be a part of Russia, or maybe it still is. So my geography is not that great, so I apologize if it's still a part of Russia. But in Lima, Peru, the upset is over the rhetoric that the current president used, President Trump. The women haven't forgotten that. They heard the rhetoric. And so that was their reason for marching, because they not only didn't like the rhetoric, but they said that the hatred and the vitriol that was brought to the forefront during the election process, they haven't forgotten that. And they didn't think that that was a good representation, and especially for Americans and for Americans who live abroad. So they wanted to make their voices heard in Lima, Peru. In Kenya, they marched for a different reason. They marched for reproductive rights, women's land, and inheritance rights. Now, here in America, we don't think much about that because there are legal issues that are in place to help with inheritance and real estate and things of that nature. But when you think about it, in Kenya, this is not automatic. They're not automatically taken care of through the legal system. So this is very important to them, land and inheritance rights. Also sexual harassment and assault. Apparently, that's a really important issue in Kenya. Female genital mutilation and more. And just the sound of female genital mutilation is just, it makes your heart stop when you hear something like that. So there are a lot of issues to be concerned with around the world. And so on tonight's show, I want to address some of the reasons that people were out protesting, because like I said at the very beginning, there's an old adage that says that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And apparently women have finally decided that it's time to take a stand and it's time to make a statement. And the impressive part is that they're pretty clear about what it is that has caused upset for them. In the city of Prague, they demonstrated against the Nazis. And what they wanted to take a stand on and point out to the world is that no matter what, in all of this, love trumps hate. And so I guess it was kind of a play on words. Even though President Trump is the president in America, love is much stronger than hate. And so I like that message. And in the state of Georgia, not in the United States, they were protesting against a patriarchal society, domestic violence, equal pay, and most of all, they were protesting against misogyny. So it's not just here in America that we have specific issues that concern women. Women have concerns all over the world, and they finally decided that they're going to do something about it. Now, when I thought about this, it reminded me of some scripture. When I thought about this protest march and what women made a declaration to do, it reminded me of King Solomon. Now, King Solomon, as you know, he had a lot of experience with women. Apparently, he's known for having over 700 wives and 300 concubines. So that's a lot. I don't care who you are. But this is the information that we have regarding King Solomon. And in the book of Proverbs, he made a very bold statement. And I have to tip my hat to King Solomon, because he was qualified to make this statement based on his 700 wives and 300 concubines. And in Proverbs 21:19, that's the 21st chapter and the 19th verse, the king says that it is better to live in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Well, I would suppose that's true, because when women are angry, they are not passive, and they are very difficult to deal with in terms of just status quo. You really have to work at it to satisfy them when something has angered them. It would suggest that that women are angry because they're not getting their way. But I think it's a lot more than that. It's not because they're not getting their way. It's because they're not getting what they need or what they want. Because for women, the family is priority for them, and they do a lot of work in the family. They spend a lot of time getting things for household members, doing things for household members, and then having to take care of themselves. So it is understandable that sometimes they are angry and sometimes they are upset. And he recognized that you don't really want to push the envelope too far if you really want to get along with the woman. You don't want to press her too far, because once she's over the edge, it's just better to be in the wilderness. And the wilderness, as we know, is not a kind place. So what I want to talk about tonight is why women are out there protesting, and how they plan to unify their message, and how they plan to not just have this for a season, but to make permanent changes that will not only affect this generation of women, but generations of women to come. So if you have thoughts or information or questions that you'd like to share in tonight's show, by all means, feel free to do so. The number to do that is area code 323-293-3375. Again, that's area code 323-293-3375. Now, we're going to go to break, and when I come back, I'm going to start to talk about some of the things that happened over the weekend and the intent of what the women wanted to do. So stay with me. I'll be right back.
Mastering math can be big fun. Fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
And now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Whoa, you're going to hear me roar. All right. Tonight's show is about the women and the protest marches around the globe this weekend. And earlier I was talking about women being upset and women being angry. But Kelly Ann Conway, I guess she's like a special advisor or press person for President Trump. And I would say this, she is a highly intelligent woman. And I think sometimes he just should allow her to do the speaking for him and keep it moving. That's just my opinion. But she said something that I did find interesting. She says that the problems that women are marching about, they had some of those same problems under the Obama administration. Well, that's true. But this is the information. I'd like to not necessarily correct Kellyanne, but certainly add another thought in that it's not just the problems under the Obama administration. The problems women have started long ago and far, far away. These are not just problems for America, for American women, but women all over the world. But I think that the thing that changed for me this weekend, the thing that I noticed, is that white women are finally taking a stand and becoming visible and vocal, because women of color all over the world have been holding it down for years, way before this march drew so many people. So it is not an administration of anybody, as far as I am concerned, that has not addressed the concerns of women. It has been a lifelong process since forever. So to just narrow it down to an administration, I think is reaching, because there have been issues regarding women for a long time, and it didn't start with any particular administration. But I guess the key is to sustain the unity. I think people are concerned that it was just a reaction, a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not something that will sustain itself. Well, I don't take that view at all. I think that the march, it may not always be a march, but I think that the movement and the intent will sustain itself. Now, normally, protest watchers stand by to see if the momentum will last, because it's believed that it doesn't if a clear leader does not present themselves. Most people believe that protest marches, they start with a lot of fervor and a lot of interest, but they soon go away. The causes go away because the message is often not clear, and it gets muddied, and so people soon give up, and they don't think it far enough through to present an argument that'll sustain itself or that will last. Now, I think that the women are onto something, because I think that they are clear about the reasons that they are marching. And I also think that they have a way to sustain the protests because they're not just going to get out there and march every weekend. They plan to take a lot of different actions, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But the other thing that I would offer to the women in terms of sustaining unity is prayer. Now, many times people don't consider prayer because they believe that, well, you know, I have to be really religious and I have to go to church every Sunday and all of that. And all of that is a good reason for prayer, but prayer is talking to God. And I think that in order to get directions and to center yourself for a battle, you need to pray. because you do want the blessings of God on whatever the efforts are that you're investing in. You want His blessings. And so my suggestion is to add another element. Don't just march, but pray, because I am a living witness. I don't have to ask anybody. I'm a living witness about what God will and can do. So my suggestion is to add that in order to sustain the unity, because people are expecting that this is just a knee-jerk reaction and that the momentum won't last. And I don't believe that. In the Los Angeles Times, it says that the day's rallies brought back echoes of a polarizing and rancorous presidential campaign. Hillary Clinton tweeted her thanks to the marchers, whose rank included many who had supported her and Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator Warren, addressing a rally in Boston, vowed to do battle for progressive causes and urged marchers to do likewise. We can whimper, we can whine, or we can fight back, Warren said. Me, I'm here to fight back. And while you may not look at this as a fight, it perhaps is, because it can and will change lives for the better. And that's what these rallies are about. It says the rallies were organized under the rubric of women's rights that many fear are imperiled under the new administration. But the march's platform incorporated an array of progressive causes, including health care, environmental concerns, and racial justice. Now, many women are saddened by the fact that the priority for the incoming administration is to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. That seems to be one of the first things that they want to do. Now, it's my understanding over the weekend they've tweaked the discussion a little bit, and they're now saying, well, it's not that we want to dismantle it. We want to add some new things to it because the cost of health care is too high. Well, I think everybody is in agreement with that. That's how we got here, because of not only the cost of health care being too high, also because if you had pre-existing conditions, the insurance company made you pay for that. So I think everybody is well aware of that. But I guess the clear part has not shown itself in how are these things going to take place. I think that's the concern. And women know that they've worked very long and very hard for health care that would sustain them. Also, many said that they were braced for an unraveling of rights and freedoms they had come to take for granted. Now, one of the issues, I guess, that was really important to women that they think that they may no longer have, and that's the right to abortion. Now, I'm not here to debate the issue of whether you believe it's right or whether you believe it's wrong. But I am here to offer the fact that for many people, they have just taken the right to have an abortion. They've taken it for granted that that's always going to be around. Well, I guess not. So that is something to certainly be debated, because there are women on both sides of the fence when it comes to abortions. It says, while the great majority of the marchers were female, men turned out in considerable numbers as well. Jacob Osterman, 24, traveled from Boston with a group of friends to take part. He says, I love and care about the women in my life, and this is a way to show that, he said. Women are a part of humanity like all of us. How can anyone not understand that? Well, that young man makes a very good point. I know many times when athletes, particularly African American or black athletes, are interviewed, they often make huge references to their moms, and they say very glowing and wonderful things about their mothers. And it has been said from time to time, well, what about the dads? The dads are there. Well, in many cases they are, and in some cases they are not. But when they make these glowing comments about their mothers, I don't think that it's to slight dad. Sometimes it may be. I'm not saying that in every case, but moms do so much. And even if you're not a mom, just being a woman, there are a lot of things to juggle. There's always a lot of things to get done. But often there's no support system anywhere around to help you get it done. And so you find that many times if you want to see something get done, you have to do it yourself. So I encourage all of you women out there who don't have a support system, don't worry about it. Do the best you can with what you can get done, because often the support system arrives when they feel that there's something in it for them. Just keep that in mind. If you're out there on the forefront, people will allow you to be out there by yourself. So be comfortable in that position. Okay? It says that some of the marchers said that they were worried about scenes of unrest associated with the inaugural commemorations Friday, when small groups smashed windows and set fires, and there were tense exchanges between Trump backers and opponents. Whatever happens, we have to keep it peaceful, said Leanne Murray, a 33-year-old emergency medical technician from Buffalo, New York, who was stenciling a sign reading, Resistance is built on hope. We can't use violence to make our point, she said, because the whole point is that people need to be safe. And that's so true. I do applaud the women for the peaceful way in which they handle protesting and marching, because it was a lot of, I would say, now the news media, I'm not sure why they didn't see this, but none of the people did they call thugs that participated in the mayhem on Friday. And these people were, destroying property, especially property that didn't belong to them, but they didn't seem to be outraged by that, and they didn't seem to characterize that as thug behavior. Well, I do, because these people were destroying things that did not belong to them, and to me, that is thug behavior. But the impressive thing about the women is that they had a goal, and they quietly honored what they were there to do, and that was to bring awareness to different causes and to make themselves visible and to make themselves heard. So they did a good job in terms of getting the message out, but not being destructive. Because when you are destructive, people don't take you seriously, and that's understandable. If you're destroying property that don't belong to you and not care about that, then why would anybody care about what your message is? So I applaud the women for their excellent behavior. And they seem to be enjoying the camaraderie and the message. So I applaud them for that. It says, talk of how to sustain momentum against Trump's reverberation. The crowds, as marchers spoke, of trying to form a lasting opposition. I will help sustain it because he stands against everything America is for, in my opinion, said Sheila Thumbo, 63, who traveled to the Washington March from her home in Denver en route to business meetings in Miami. And this is the first time she's ever protested. So here, this 63-year-old woman is, she's out there exercising her right to be heard. It says protesters mention a range of reasons for their attendance, from Trump's cabinet picks to his campaign rhetoric to his intentions regarding funding of the arts. Republicans plan to defund Planned Parenthood and repeal the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, were huge draws. People were brought together mostly by their opposition to him, said Patrick Egan. Often, without unifying issues, it is difficult to sustain unity, he said. Recent history has demonstrated the alternatives for protest groups. The conservative Tea Party movement rose in opposition to President Obama and his health care and economic stimulus plan. By filling congressional town halls with their protests, they helped to fuel unified Republican opposition to the president and push their own party in a more conservative direction. So this is what I mentioned earlier, that it seems that people think that the women may not be able to sustain their unity. And that's why I offered up that, yes, it can be sustained, but they have to pray and they have to pick a leader, because people often don't pay much attention if there's not a voice that can really express what the masses are feeling or what the masses are saying. So picking a leader would be a very good thing, or more than one. But they do have to do that just to solidify and have people take their message seriously. So I think that they're off to a very good start, and hopefully they'll be able to sustain it, not only at the high level that it is now, but it will become more of a rallying cry for everybody. And each weekend there'll be somebody out marching to make a point. It won't be just this weekend and then it kind of goes away. It says Robin Shepherd was worried about the future. The Cheviot Hills homemaker considers making America great again code for taking the country back to a more racially segregated past. We're not going to go back to that, she said. This is the last gasp of people who aren't ready to move forward. Some protesters were already thinking of ways to take action beyond the march, including donating to groups such as Planned Parenthood, writing to political leaders, and volunteering time at civil rights organizations. Gabriela Macias said her 4-year plan included lots of coffee and lots of resistance. Hopefully, not forever, she said with a laugh. She plans to network with people fighting different causes and to occasionally talk to Trump supporters to better understand their views. And I really like that, because if you see something or someone as the enemy, you can never get a grasp on what's really the truth without having a conversation. So I know that there's a lot of anger right now, and I believe that as time goes on, it will subside. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that in a debate or in a discussion, the easiest way to move the discussion forward is to have information from both sides. So you just can't honor what your thoughts are. It is important to find out what the other person is thinking. It doesn't mean that you have to automatically agree with them, but it's a much you stand a better chance of achieving your goal when you at least know what it is that you're talking about and when it is made clear as to what your goal is. We don't know. Maybe some of the people who have supported the president, maybe they have excellent ideas about how to get things done. They may not share the same view of how to make things happen that the president does. And they may offer some really good suggestions about how to move forward. That we don't know yet because, unfortunately, the administration has not laid out whatever its goal and its plan is to move forward. So we just have to wait and see. And when I say wait and see, I don't mean that nothing should be done, but we have to continue in dialogue and debate until we find some common ground in order to move forward on that. Once we can find something that everybody says, okay, well, we all have this in common and we all believe this, now we can act on this and start to move forward. So I have great hope for what the women will do. I think that they're going to march in unison and promote really good ideas and really good steps that will be of benefit to everyone. Because the march now has a lot of representation from everywhere. It's not just one group of women, it's all kinds of women that are participating. Often there's lag time, I guess, to get everybody involved. Even when they're running for the office of the president, I noticed that with Hillary Clinton, there was not a lot of talk in the beginning of her campaign about Black Lives Matter or police brutality or any of those things. But I noticed that at the end of her campaign, she did start to take a stand and make statements against some of the things that were going on with police departments around the country that perhaps should not have happened. So sometimes people are late to the party, but nevertheless, they do show up. So like I said, I'm very hopeful about changes that will come. The other thing that I think this march highlights is that women have to stop seeing each other as the enemy. And we have to take better care of each other. Often we can be our own worst enemy. We're not always supportive like we should be. And we have to own that. Many times we want excellent treatment from men, but we don't treat ourselves so well. So unfortunately, people tend to treat you like they see you treat yourself. So I think that one of the convincing things that must be done if we're going to really move forward with this is to consistently be kind to each other and stop some of the things that we know that are not that does not represent us well. And that's some of the gossiping about each other, some of the lack of support, both when it comes to relationships with men and when it comes to the workforce, because we can really be brutal to each other. So I think that one of the ways that we can really make our mark is to become much more consistent in good behavior toward each other. Now, I'm going to take a break, but when I come back, I have some final thoughts about the marches that women are undertaking around the world. Stay with me.
Mastering math can be big fun. Fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing it, play it, Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing it, play it, Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
Dad, now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it, Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Without a woman or a girl.
Do you think perhaps James didn't get the memo? James Brown says this is a man's world. Well, that's true. And we want to keep men around. We're not trying to get rid of men, but we do think that it should be a lot more harmony between men and women, and certainly a lot more harmony for women toward each other. That's the only way we're going to really make this thing work. I was struck by the some of the comments in the Los Angeles Times. This is Sunday's edition. By what some of the women there they had to say, and the thing that I like about it is that they left their names with the things that concern them. So I'm going to read to you what some of these people had to say, because they're from all over. They're not just from Los Angeles. They're from Los Angeles and other places. This really struck me. This person's name is Carolyn Holt, and she's from Los Angeles. And she says, I'm marching because I've been raped, I've been belittled by men, and I've been reduced to barely a human because of my gender. Now, that really resonated with me, because there are a lot of women out there dealing with a lot of hurt and a lot of baggage, whether they ever have taken the time to address it or not. It is there. Now, I do encourage women, if you are suffering from a lot of emotional issues or physical issues or whatever it is, I recommend therapy if that's what you need. And I recommend going to the doctor. Take time out to take care of yourself. That's very important, because it's hard to move forward if you have a lot of challenges against that. And so whatever it is that you need to do to be in optimum health, then do that. The next person, she says, I am almost 97, and I was born in Los Angeles. We have made so many gains, and I fear we will lose them all under the Trump presidency. And that's Helen Zoloft. Well, that's a possibility. We could lose a lot under the Trump presidency, but that's why I recommend prayer, because Donald Trump is simply the president. He is not all-knowing, and he is not all-powerful. There is a higher power, and I say let's enlist his abilities and see what happens. Glenna Matthews from Laguna Beach says, I have never been so afraid for my country. Wow. That's pretty telling. Autumn Carberry from Riverside says, I'm marching for my undocumented students, for women's rights, for all those who can't defend themselves. Gregory Beckham from Long Beach says, for my 91-year-old mother and my 30-year-old daughter, who both taught me how to be a man. Wow. Now, to me, that really warmed my heart. That's a lot of credit to women. And so that's the other thing, women, is that you have to remember that you can't paint everybody with a broad stroke. You have to see people as individuals, and you can't say that all men are bad and that they're not supportive, because there are men out there that are. Deb Bernard of Lancaster, England says, because if Trump's style of leadership becomes normalized, the world will simply implode with ridiculous, irresponsible division. What insight. I like that a lot. Michelle Antonessi from Trabuco Canyon, California says, I'm marching because I have committed to being part of the resistance. All right, Michelle. Christine Winter of Reno, Nevada says, because I love my country and the entire Constitution. Danielle Martinelli of Los Angeles says, I march because through history, women have been treated as inferior and second-class citizens. Uh-oh. Well, I guess that's not going to happen anymore. And let me see. The last one says, it's Kim Tyler. She says, because I would be dead or at best homeless without Obamacare. Now, I think that's really hitting the nail on the head. She recognizes that, my goodness, where would she be without some help? And Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, has helped 22 million people, many of them women. They've been able to get the health care that was not even available. I don't know if you remember, but in the city of Los Angeles, before the Affordable Care Act, they would hold these clinics for if you needed just a general health checkup, if you needed eyeglasses for people who were really struggling with sight, and dental needs. And there would be people in line at 4 o'clock in the morning for days on end, trying to make sure that they got however many slots were available for doctors that would come in and do pro bono work in dentistry and in ophthalmology. And they noticed that the lines were long and that people were willing to wait as long as it took to get some relief. Now, if you have this kind of need in a major city like Los Angeles, how can the Affordable Care Act be a bad thing? What's in it that makes it so terrible? Well, it's my understanding for the people who oppose it, the thing in it that makes it so terrible is that insurance premiums for the people who actually pay for their premiums have gone up immensely. And I believe them when they say that. I believe that it has become a challenge to take care of your health insurance. But that, to me, is not because of the Affordable Care Act. That's a decision that the insurance companies are making based on their own risk, their business model, and the risk that they see that their company is taking. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Affordable Care Act tried to address as much of this as possible. And nobody wants to see their premiums go up. I certainly understand that. But to say that the act should be abolished when it clearly has helped at least 22 million people, I'm not sure how you draw that conclusion. On what basis do you draw that conclusion? Simply because if it's just that the premiums went up. So it has to be a lot of other disappointment with the act itself, I would hope, for you to think that it's a good idea to have it abolished. Because it's helping a lot of people. And those lines that you once saw in the city, you don't see them anymore because those people have been able to get help. Also, another problem that existed just here in Los Angeles, and I'm sure it did around the country, is emergency rooms. People were going to emergency as if it were their primary care physicians. Whenever they got sick, they just went to the emergency room. They never went to see a doctor because they couldn't afford the insurance. And so it's my understanding that if you go to emergency, they could not turn you away. So emergency was treated as if it was a regular doctor visit. So I say this, if we found something that addresses those issues and people can be in better health as a result of that, that's something that we should keep. Now, if there's some tweaking that needs to happen to make it run better, then I don't think anybody would be opposed to that. But the tweaking needs to be justified, not just change it and get rid of it altogether simply because of the administration that brought it into being. It's something to be applauded because, as I said on last week's show, 7 presidents had tried to do the same thing before President Barack Obama was able to bring this to pass. So I think that instead of finding fault, we need to put all of that aside and figure out a way to drive down the costs so that even more people can take advantage of a system that works for everybody. Because when the president offered the Affordable Care Act, he said that he wanted the rest of the country to enjoy the same medical services that the president and Congress is able to get. Well, what's wrong with that? To be able to enjoy the same level of expertise so that when you go to the doctor, you can have some belief and some hope that you're going to get well? How can that be a bad thing? And especially here in America. So I say this, that if it's like my mother used to tell us when we said something that was unnecessary, she would say, now, if you don't have something good to say, then just don't say anything at all. I'm sure you've heard that from your parents. Well, I say this, if you don't have something good to offer regarding health care and improving the lives of women, men, and children around the world, then maybe you just shouldn't say anything at all. Because negativity is not going to help resolve the problem. It's just going to make both sides more resolved to stay where they are, and then this becomes an even longer lesson in getting nothing done. So since we don't want to do that, and America is much greater than that, then I say we all should roll up our sleeves and do our best to make a contribution that everybody would be worthy to partake in. Because this show is about inspiration and encouragement. And as always, I want to encourage you to move from misery to magnificence, because you can do that, and from subpar to spectacular. Thanks so much for joining me in the show tonight, and good night, everybody.
Mastering math can be big fun, fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing, play it, Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing, play it, Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
Dad, now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it, Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Hey yo, I remember Marvin Gaye used to sing to me. He had me feeling like black was the thing to be.